That's an asinine comment.
I think it's 0%.
Zero.
Yes.
Bold.
Go ahead. You guys can give your percentage on that.
This would be my concern, is that behind them, there's the talent drops off quickly. That happens on most every team.
Every team would have
good
that.
line together. But if you feel that those three guys can absolutely dominate any other top line that you're playing against, then I'd probably put it together. So I have it higher. I think that if he's trying it now, it means he's at least thinking about it. So 0 seems wildly low. But I'll go like 40%, guys.
Whoa. 40%.
Wow.
That's a more ridiculous answer than me saying 0.
He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it. It's on his mind, right?
He's thinking about it because, again, I think he wants to keep the other lines intact, which is a part of it. He maybe wants to spark the three of them and make sure that, okay, you're leaders. You need to prove you can play my system, my style. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't really given an exact reasoning as to why he's
more
doing
of like a hunch kind of coach.
Berube is.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I like a riverboat gambler.
Jonas,
I like
what
that.
do you got, buddy?
Well, where's
I'll
your
say
Jerry's
like
on this?
9%.
9?
9%. So I'm
You thought
outlandish.
0 was low?
Well, 0 is like there's no chance.
9?
That's
I'm
crazy.
saying I think there's a 0% chance
that
they
any
show
game
up
in the playoffs.
before the game, and Mike Ross calls out the starting lineup, and it's Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, and they stay intact for every single shift of that game.
I'm going to quote Jeff
I think it's
O'Neill.
0%.
That might be the stupidest thing you've ever said on this show.
Listen, I've said a lot of dumb things. That one,
0.
I think, is a well-informed.
You know what could happen? Just what I'm talking about. Mid-game, Game 3 against the Panthers.
Mid-game, though.
They go to it. It works.
Mid-game.
And he's like, Game 4, I'm sticking with it. Why the hell wouldn't I?
Okay. And then in Game 4, they're down 2-0 after the first period. He goes, I can't keep
That's the thing. It didn't look amazing. Like, they gave up the first 2 goals. They kind of looked out of sorts. I guess you're saying
9%.
Basically, like,
Yeah,
have you ever seen the movie Ocean's 11? Hayes?
Yes, I've seen it.
You just don't like a lot of big stars in the same movie together. Like, you need character actors, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's too much. You can't have Matt Damon playing like a kind of the 7th or 8th role in the lineup.
Pretty good
movie. You know
movie,
what I mean? Yeah, it's not bad.
9%? Like, you don't even stand by your comment, Jonas. Like,
I know,
9%.
Jonas.
I said you had a good day. You just came back to ground level, but
Exactly.
Well, because
Now
what you
you're
said
back to the
is
starting
what
line.
you said before is true. Like it doesn't totally conceptually make sense, but 0% of it ever happening in a game this spring is just crazy.
But 9%. Like, if you came home with 9% in Chem 30, would your parents have been happier than
I
0?
know.
Barely happier, right?
9%.
I was
going
to say 15, but like 40 is like almost 50-50.
Yeah.
40 is that's an ayahuasca take. Like you need a drug test. It's not 40.
He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it, guys. I tell you, I think he might try it in the playoffs.
Listen,
if things aren't going well.
It's the holiday season. He's feeling very, merry and jolly. Yeah. I mean, why not play the three of them together? I'd like to see it on a home. I'd like to see it at home. Like they're in Buffalo tomorrow, right?
Correct.
And then at home to the Islanders on Saturday. Throw the home fans, give them that present on Saturday. That's what I'd like to see.
So who's the lineup they're going against on Saturday? The Islanders?
Yes.
So who's their top line? Like, is that a line that you're like, you should be able to contain?
I mean, you're
100%.
talking. Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to overwhelm them.
For sure you can.
And that's the thought process.
You
right?
can overwhelm the Sabres and the Islanders without question. Now, Monday, the Jets are in town. If Hellebuck's in net and they're ready to play, that could be a bit of a different story. I will say this. I could adjust my Jerry's percentage after the game on Monday if they stick together for 3 more.
I mean, what's the percentage that they stick together that long?
But that's the whole point. Exactly.
It's pretty low.
But, it's one game in December and a practice and all that. So Willie hit 20 last night, and you had a sit-down with William Nylander up on The Athletic. Did he actually say his goal is 40?
No. He says goes 50.
Okay, because I was told, I didn't get to read the whole article, and I was told that he said 40. I'm like, how could he say 40 again?
No,
he's already done 40, and he already has
There's
20.
a typo in the story. No, it's 50.
Okay, all right. That's what I figured, because I was going to get to a strut or dud on this. We'll come back. We'll fire up the oven. Strut or dud is coming up, and a part of it is going to be, can he hit 50? Not even this season necessarily, at any point in his career, because he is scoring at a very elite level this year, last year, although he's probably on about the same pace he was last year, and we know what happened.
He's a little
Slow
ahead
it down.
of it.
Yeah, well, I guess from a points perspective, he's probably a bit behind it, but goals, he's a little bit ahead of it.
Correct.
So strut or dud coming up on that more. Jason Strudwick's in here. Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. We've got my list coming up just after 6. Luke Wilson will be in here. The Thursday nighter tonight, Chargers Broncos. The line is down to 2.5 now. Chargers laying 2.5 on FanDuel. Al's brother will be in here, Hazenbro, with the pick. What a massive way to start Week 16. We have so many games to get to today and tomorrow. They play Saturday. There's Sunday games, Monday games. It's going to be a ton of NFL action between now and the end of the year. So Luke and Al's brother still to come, and Craig Button on the World Juniors starting their pre-tournament schedule tonight. So we'll catch up with Craig and get his take on the tournament, among other things, throughout the NHL. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050, and on the TSN app. All right, Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Jason Strudwick, Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. Got Pierre LeBrun coming up in about a half an hour. All of a sudden, some trades in the NHL last night. It kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't surprised Capo Caco got traded, and he goes to Seattle. Young defenseman going back to New York in a pick. But William Carrier out of nowhere being traded for Justin Barron. And Carrier's a French-Canadian going back to, or Alex Carrier, going back to Montreal. Right shot defenseman, on term, pretty good defensive defenseman. I guess that's what, Barry Trotz deciding I got to move money?
I think what he said is they wanted to get a younger defenseman and try to develop him, basically. Barron's 23. Carrier is 28.
Yeah, I guess. It seems like just a change for the sake of change. But still, we were talking about yesterday, our deal's going to happen here before the freeze, and then all of a sudden they happen, and there's still people wondering what could take place in Vancouver. Are they going to make moves? Because Jim Rutherford has been kind of indicating that they might be looking at certain things, and when Rutherford says that, generally it happens. I think the Leafs are probably in on the market. I'm not anticipating anything's going to happen anytime soon with Toronto, but at some point they're going to make a deal, and it feels like they're putting their cards on the table, like it's a third line center that they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Nashville, I think that their heads must be just reeling, right? They're trying to figure out what is happening or what's not happening, more importantly. They look at the Rangers. I mean, Kako and Trouba were two of the players that were kind of highlighted by whether it was the team or the GM or the fans or the media, that they were part of the reason this team's struggling. Well, those guys are gone now. So what's next? Where do you go from here? And can that team kind of get going? They're not that far out of a playoff spot, but a team that you feel, last year had such a good year. Now you're changing things up, but they really haven't done a lot. And I don't mean that to be mean, but they haven't won really a lot of anything with that group they have there, and that group is aging now. So maybe Drew is trying to change it on the fly and add some pieces or subtract pieces. It looks like more right now than anything.
Yeah, and then you wonder how much more they're going to have to do. Like, if it keeps going south.
I just, if I was a Rangers fan, I'd be like, that's what you got back from the second overall pick in the draft?
Yeah, but
I know he's not.
You got to move past that.
Do you?
Yeah,
yes, you do. He's been in the league for 6 years, Jonas.
Yeah, but he's still 23.
I understand that, but he is.
That's gone.
I think so. What is the statute of limitations on?
That's a good question.
Jonathan Drouin was a third overall pick. At some point, you're like, that guy's, I don't care where he got drafted. I'm just using him as an example. I know he looks okay in Colorado.
Okay.
But I think at some point, Kako he's a third-line player. Doesn't matter if he shouldn't have gone second overall, I think is the way you reflect on it.
Leafs facing center crisis amid injuries, eyeing trade market for solutions. As the Toronto Maple Leafs battle through a growing injury list and a suspension, their lack of depth at the center position has become a glaring issue. According to Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman in his latest 32 Thoughts article, the Leafs are among the teams exploring trade options to bolster their lineup. This effort is coming amid increasing competition from teams like the Chicago Blackhawks and Nashville Predators, who have also set their sights on improving their center depth. Friedman didn't mince words about the Leafs' predicament. The teams currently focusing on centers, including Chicago and Nashville, must consider when others will enter the market. Toronto will undoubtedly be one of those teams, he wrote. While the Blackhawks and Predators may have an edge in terms of cap space and assets, the Leafs remain a team to watch as the season progresses. The Leafs situation is urgent, with up to 7 forwards currently unavailable due to injury or suspension. Ryan Reeves is serving a 5-game suspension, while key players like Austin Matthews, upper body, Matthew Knies, upper body, Kaye Jarnkrok, groin/sports hernia, David Kampf, lower body, Max Domi, lower body, and Max Pacioretty, lower body, are all sidelined. The team has even considered temporarily shifting Mitch Marner to the center position, highlighting the severity of their depth issues. This isn't just a short-term concern for the Leafs. Depth at center has been a persistent challenge for the team, and while stopgap solutions like Marner could help in the interim, the front office appears keen to explore longer-term fixes. For fans of the blue and white, this has been a recurring theme. The Leafs' center depth often becomes a problem at the worst possible times. James Myrtle of The Athletic recently added more fuel to the speculation, naming several potential trade targets who could help the Leafs address their issues. Among them is Ryan O'Reilly, a familiar name for Toronto fans. O'Reilly, who signed a 4-year, $18 million deal with Nashville in 2023, might be a trade candidate if the Predators' underwhelming start to the season, 6-11-3, 31st in the league, prompts a rebuild. However, his steep price tag and history with the Leafs, including rejecting a free agency offer less than 2 years ago, make this a complex and potentially unlikely move. Other names mentioned by Myrtle include former Leaf Nazem Kadri, currently with Calgary, as well as players like Michael Granlund, Nick Jugstad, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, Trent Frederick, Radek Faksa, and Sean Kuraly. While some of these options seem more plausible than others, it's clear that general manager Brad Treliving will need to get creative to find the right piece without mortgaging the team's future. Cap space remains one of the biggest obstacles for the Leafs. Unlike teams like Chicago and Nashville, which have more flexibility and assets, Toronto is walking a financial tightrope. As Friedman noted, competition will intensify as cap-constrained teams strive to create room. For the Leafs, that could mean waiting for the market to develop further, a risky move given their current needs. The situation also highlights the Leafs' ongoing struggle to build a roster that can withstand the grueling nature of an NHL season. Injuries are an inevitability in hockey, but Toronto's current predicament underscores the importance of depth, a quality the team has struggled to consistently maintain. Looking back on recent years, the Leafs have often leaned heavily on their star players, particularly Matthews, Marner, and William Nylander. While these players have delivered in spades, the lack of reliable depth options has left the team vulnerable in critical moments. The current crisis at center is merely the latest example of this recurring issue. Some fans have called for more aggressive moves from Treliving, arguing that now is the time to strike while the team's core is in its prime. Others, however, are more cautious, pointing to the dangers of overpaying for short-term fixes. Striking the right balance will be key, especially as the Leafs aim to keep their championship window open. Despite the challenges, there's no denying that Toronto has the talent to be a contender, provided they can patch up their lineup. The ongoing rumors and speculation surrounding potential trades show that the Leafs are at least exploring every avenue to strengthen their roster. For fans of the blue and white, this moment feels like a pivotal point in the season. With a lineup ravaged by injuries and a tough schedule ahead, the Leafs must act decisively to avoid falling behind in the standings. The addition of a dependable center could be the difference between weathering the storm or watching another season slip away. Whether it's O'Reilly, Kadri, or another surprise name, one thing is certain: the Leafs are under pressure to deliver. And for a fan base as passionate and loyal as Toronto's, there's no room for excuses. The time to act is now, and Leafs Nation is watching closely. As the trade deadline approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Treliving pull off a move that solidifies the Leafs' status as a contender, or will the search for center depth become yet another chapter in the team's long history of what-ifs? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, it's never boring in Leafs land. As the Maple Leafs navigate this critical juncture, their fan base remains as vocal as ever. Toronto is a city that breathes hockey, and the pressure on Brad Treliving to make the right moves is immense. Every decision he makes, or doesn't make, will be scrutinized, from talk radio to social media, where Leafs Nation is already debating the merits of the various names being floated as potential trade targets. Among the louder debates is whether the team should prioritize a high-profile acquisition like Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri, or focus on a lower-cost, reliable center who can fill a supporting role without costing too many future assets. While O'Reilly's leadership and playoff experience make him an attractive option, his contract and recent history with the Leafs add layers of complexity to any potential reunion. Similarly, Kadri's gritty, two-way playstyle remains a fan favorite, but his cap hit and availability might render him an unrealistic target. Another factor complicating the Leafs situation is their tight salary cap. While Chicago and Nashville can make moves with relative ease due to their financial flexibility, Toronto must navigate a labyrinth of constraints to make any trade work. This likely means including salary retention or moving existing contracts to make room, which could drive up the cost of any potential deal. The question then becomes, how much are the Leafs willing to sacrifice to address their immediate needs? One potential trade partner generating buzz is the Seattle Kraken. Yanni Gourde, a dependable two-way center, has been mentioned as a possible target. Gourde's versatility and championship pedigree from his time with Tampa Bay make him an appealing option. Seattle, however, is in playoff contention and may not be inclined to part with a key piece unless the Leafs can provide a substantial return. Another intriguing name is Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders. Nelson is a consistent scorer and reliable faceoff-man, qualities that would undoubtedly bolster Toronto's center depth. However, the Islanders are notoriously cautious when it comes to trades, and prying Nelson away would likely require a significant package, including picks or prospects that the Leafs may be hesitant to part with. For all the trade talk, some analysts believe the solution might come from within. Sheldon Keefe has shown a willingness to experiment with his lineup, and players like Pontus Holmberg or Fraser Minton could be given an opportunity to step up. While relying on less experienced players carries risks, it might be the Leafs' only option if the trade market proves too costly or slow to develop. Adding to the Leafs' urgency is the timing. The Atlantic Division remains one of the toughest in the league, with teams like Boston, Florida, and Tampa Bay continuing to dominate. Any prolonged slump could see Toronto slip further down the standings, putting their playoff hopes in jeopardy. For a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, failing to address their weaknesses could have catastrophic consequences. Brad Treliving's history as a general manager suggests he's not afraid to make bold moves. His time with the Calgary Flames was marked by blockbuster trades, including the acquisition of Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar in the Matthew Tkachuk deal. Leafs fans hope he brings that same decisiveness to Toronto, especially as the trade deadline looms. Beyond the immediate need for a center, this situation underscores a broader issue with the Leafs roster construction. Depth has been a perennial concern, and while Toronto boasts some of the league's top-end talent, their reliance on a handful of stars has left them vulnerable in moments like this. Moving forward, addressing this imbalance must be a priority for the front office if the team is to achieve sustained success. As the Leafs head into a critical stretch of the season, the next few weeks could define their trajectory.